Let's see if it's streaming. So let me know if it comes in over there, okay? It's coming in? Okay, good. At the beginning of the Sabbath. So of course, it was how can you say a double Sabbath. So, we got the new moon on top of the regular weekly Sabbath that we keep. So, so now we're in the first of our new year. Okay, so in the first of the new year, there are many things that do occur and that do happen. In the beginning of our year, right? So we know that the Most High does a lot of his pruning and his process of elimination. All right. So of course, just to kind of talk about it a little bit. Um, you know, Around this time, man, this is where it may be like people's, it may it's like brothers and sisters' first time, keeping Passover, or they running into like various challenges, what I'm saying, within themselves, within their homes, and so on and so forth, right? But around this time, man, this should be the time, man, where where we began to cleave unto the Most High the most, because you know one of the holiest, the holiest of holiest of feast, is about to occur, right? So of course, if this is the first day, on the 14th day at even, that's when we keep the Lord's Passover. So we'll be celebrating, one of the great deliverances, you know, of our people, in this day. All right. So, we go through the first Exodus, of course, what I mean? The first Exodus history, man, we see that it was a lot of destruction that happened. All right. The Most High, woke up one of his servants, Moses, and he instructed Moses to, go and to deliver his people. You know what I mean? So by Moses following the instructions of the Most High, right, going to him and letting him know, like, look, the Lord is about to give you this great deliverance, man, from the hands of your oppressors, and all of those who oppressed you amongst the children of Mizraim, So we see that, Moses had brought those 10 destructive plagues, right, that basically, destroyed Egypt and crippled the very foundation of Egypt. You see that? So we'll be going over all of those things, man. Throughout the course of the week, all the way up to Passover. So we have some good information on it. You know what I mean? And of course, it gets better and better every year. All right. So first and foremost, man, just want to still give all honor and praise and glory unto the Most High Power. So let's open up to the book of Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. All right, so we can get a little bit more on the Exodus itself. All right, Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. And it says, excuse me. And it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month it shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. All right. So the one thing that the Lord did, right, he basically, solidified that, he said, mark this month. Okay. So we know that the month that it's talking about is the month of Abib. Okay. So the month of Abib, meaning what? Green ear, right? This would mark the beginning of a new year for the children of Israel. All right. So he says, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. So we know all other nations, they have their months, right? And they have the beginning of their year. You see what I'm saying? Like, say for instance, for Esau, right, the so-called white man, the beginning of his year is what? It's January. All right, January 1st is the beginning of his new year. Okay, but for us, the Lord said, mark this month Abib. Okay, This will be the beginning of months. All right, so this is going to be the beginning of the year for us. So now let's read on. So it says, speak unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. All right. So he says, speak unto the congregation of Israel. So all of the congregation of Israel, Moses and Aaron was speaking to them. All right. And he told them to let them know on the 10th day. So after this day, right, 10 days later, right, on the 10th day of the month, every man should should take a lamb, all right, a lamb, okay, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. All right, so one lamb for for every household. Okay, so then it says, so now he says, and if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. All right, so everyone according to their eating. Okay, they will basically take the lamb. All right. So that's when he's talking about, so a household that be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto him take it according to the number of souls. So then those two households would basically merge together. All right. If if a family had the lamb and it was too much for them, then they could just basically combine combine their households and eat according to the number of souls. All right. So then it says in verse 5, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. So that's very important for us to understand. He says your lamb shall be without blemish, right? Meaning it couldn't have any type of spot or any type of crookedness in it or anything like that. Limp leg and all of that. All right. So it had to be a lamb, all right, without blemish. And it says a male of the first year. It says ye shall take it from the sheep or from the goats. So you have to either take it from the sheep or from the goats. All right, it could have been either a sheep or a goat, a lamb or a goat. All right, as far as when you're dealing with the flock. Okay, so now as he says here, all right, so it says of the first year, and we're going to see that all of this has a very, very significant importance according to scripture. Okay, because as we go into the history of the New Testament, you'll begin to see like a lot of this stuff, man, ties in, with the coming of the Messiah. All right, so this would be a part of, this feast would basically be like the precursor to his coming. All right, so those that understood, the actual meaning of the Passover, you know what I mean? They understood about the Messiah. Those that didn't, they basically just be keeping it out of custom. All right. So we know that there were various prophets, of course, that did talk about the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah, etc. All right. We know that Isaiah did, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, those men, they saw King David himself, had prophetic visions, man, of the Messiah himself. All right, and of his coming. Okay. So that stuff, man, we'll get a little bit deeper into, a little bit later. All right. So now he says, and ye shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. The whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So it is to be killed at evening. It couldn't be killed that day or whatever the case may be. It had to be killed at evening. All right. So as time goes on, okay, we know that the type of we're in captivity or whatever, so we won't be able to keep the Passover the way it should be kept. All right, so most of the time we have to buy our lamb already pre ready. All right, or pre-prepared, excuse me, lack of better words, pre-prepared. All right, so now it says, and they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and and on the upper door post of the houses wherein they shall eat it. All right. So they were to take the blood and they was to strike it on the two side posts on the upper door of the posts of the houses, right? So basically, like, if you have a house, right, those who would take the blood of the lamb and then they would basically like strike it on the sides of the doorpost. All right. So now, do we do it now? No. If you don't have the means to be able to keep it the way you're supposed to, make sure you still observe the Passover nonetheless. All right. So it says, and they shall eat the flesh in the night roasted with fire and unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. It says, they shall eat it. All right. So now those are the three components of the Passover. All right. The flesh meaning the lamb, the unleavened bread, and then it also means the bitter herbs. So each one of these components of the Passover have a significant meaning behind them as well. All right. So he says, verse 9, eat not of it raw, nor sod it at all with water, but roast with fire, his head and his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. All right, meaning the inward parts. And he says, and ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. All right, so so you're supposed to eat as much as you can, eat to your fill, right? And then you have to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, once you're done, everybody that ate their fill, you have to burn the rest, the rest of it. You have to burn the rest of it away. All right. So you have to burn the rest of the lamb itself. Okay. So now it says, and thus shall ye eat it with your loins girded, and with your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. All right. So he says, and you shall eat it with haste. Remember, you're supposed to, you gotta have your gird on. You make sure you have your clothes on, your shoes on, right? Staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Why? Because the Egyptians were about to expel the children of Israel from out of the land. All right. So now it says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. So now that also has a very important significance, all right, to it as well, right? When you're dealing with the blood, okay? So we have to understand what the blood means, right? When it says, when the Most High sees it, he's going to pass over you, okay? And this blood also has another another meaning, right? Which we know is dealing with the Messiah himself, all right? And what in the blood in which he shed, right, for the nation of Israel, okay, to give us atonement for our sins, all right, and for destruction to pass over us, right? Because remember, and like I said, I'm gonna go into all of that stuff, man. As we progress more and more towards the Sabbath of the Lord. And it says, and this shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. You see that? So remember, that's what the title of this lesson is. The Passover it must be kept throughout our generations. All right. So you have those that say, well, you know what, we don't have to keep the Passover. We're not in the land. We're not in the place where the Lord placed his name. You have those that say, well, Christ is our Passover, so we don't have to, have the Passover lamb, nor do we have to observe it. You have all of these different type of doctrines, man, that, that try to support them not having to keep the Passover itself. All right. But we know, of course, what the Most High shows us in the law. So remember, the law is our foundation. Okay, so the law shows us, you know what I mean, that it has to be kept in a certain manner. All right. So he says, and I'm gonna read it again, verse 14. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord through your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. So by law forever, because that's what ordinance means. By law forever. All right. So that's what the Lord wanted us to do. Verse 15. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. You see that? So remember, there's no leaven supposed to be within our houses, right? For 7 days. Okay.
That also shows you shouldn't be visiting anyone who has leaven in their house.
Right. So, so that's why that's what the Lord said. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses. And whosoever eateth leaven from the first day even until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off. All right. So we know everybody has their different situations, man, where they either you have teenagers that are in the truth and they live with their parents, and their parents are not in the truth, and their parents still buy a whole bunch of leaven products, so on and so forth, right? You know, so in some instances they can't help it, right? But to keep their bodies, away from the leaven. So if you need to do so, make sure that you do so. Keep your bodies away from the leaven products. All right. Make sure that you keep your body right. Keep your rooms clean. All right. If you have rooms, you know what I mean. Make sure that your own food, your food that you have, that you prepare it yourself. All right. And make sure that you have your unleavened bread with you. There are many scenarios, man, that you can go into, but the key is to make sure that you do not consume any type of leaven. All right. Now, if you have a house and it's of your own, then you make sure that the leaven is not found within your house. Okay. For 7 days. All right. So, and that also shows us, man, when we're supposed to remove the leaven from ourselves. That shows us that it shows us how to remove wickedness. All right, wickedness from our body. Change our diet. Right. Teaches us self-discipline, and it teaches us many things. All right. Hold on one second. Let me plug this in. So, it teaches a lot. It teaches us a lot about that. All right, self-discipline, all of that stuff. All right, cleaning out our bodies, etc. So that's what the Passover does. All right, and it has other very important, significant meanings as well, as far as making sure that we we cleanse our spirit. All right, and making sure that we're right. All right. What the heck is this? Damn ass. It's crazy. So making sure that everything is right within ourselves. All right. So verse 16, it says, and in the first day there shall be an holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be an holy convocation to you. It says, no manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. All right. So the only work that you're able to do, right, on the first day or the seventh day is the food that you're preparing, right, for the feast. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's it. So we're talking about any type of servile work, going to work and all of that stuff the next day. All of that is out of the question. You're not supposed to do that. All right. So remember, that means you're actually going to be breaking the Sabbath of that feast. Okay. So now within the rest of those days, right? So within those 5 days, you're able to work, right? But that's the first night and the seventh night, you were not to do any type of servile work. All right. So then he says, and ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in this self same day I have brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations for an ordinance forever. Look at that. So the Lord showed us right there. He said this is an he says this day in your generations by ordinance forever. So it's a law forever. All right. So everybody's talking about, no, you don't have to keep it. We're not in the land. No, you don't have to keep it because Christ is the Passover. No, you don't have to keep the feast days anymore and all of that stuff. Because Christ put an end to the law and all of that. No, the Lord said right here that you are to keep this feast of Passover forever. Okay. So that's very important for us to really understand. All right. So now let's read on. So it says, verse 18, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. Look at that. So again, the Lord reiterates, through the mouth of his prophet Moses, man, that no leaven is to be found in your house for 7 days. All right. He says, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel. So the Lord makes it very clear that you'll be cut off from the congregation if you eat leaven. All right. You have to make sure that you're very careful. This is your soul at stake, all right, or on the line. He says, whether he be a stranger or born in the land, ye shall eat nothing leavened. Again, he says, he reiterates it again, ye shall eat nothing leavened. All right. In all your habitations, ye shall eat unleavened bread. So wherever we are at, we are to be eating unleavened bread. Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintels of the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. Right. Why? Because that's because the Lord was going to send the death angel to destroy, all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. All right. So he says, for the Lord will pass through and smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. All right. So look at that. So he says that what? So he says so that the destroyer won't come in and destroy you in your house. All right. The firstborn that is in your house. Okay. So he says, and ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and thy sons forever. Right. So remember, that was the question that you had before, right? Well, it's right there. It's right here in the scriptures, talking about the blood and on the side post and all of that. Mm-hmm. So he says that you're supposed to do it forever. All right. But we don't have those means. Yes, he's talking about. Listen, check this out. So let's start from verse 21 again. He says, then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take your lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance, meaning a law to thee and thy sons forever. You see that?
Yeah.
But now the question, but now the, but now the question is, where do you get the blood from, right? Unless you kill the lamb, unless you have the whole lamb, you slaughter it for yourself, and you contain the blood. But remember, you would have to do it. You would have to do it accordingly. You see that? You hear me? You would have to do it according to all of the rights and the ordinances, okay, of the Passover. All right. So remember, down to the very last detail. All right. So we know that we coming back to all of that. You know what I mean? And we have to make sure that we putting all our ducks in a row, man, to where we be able to come into into performing a lot of those things, man. Being able to get the lamb whole, you know what I'm saying? All of that stuff, man. Or being able to to slaughter it ourselves and go from there, skin it, all of that.
Some states they don't allow you to slaughter animals.
Yeah, see.
Like California, they have strict policies.
So
you have to go to a butcher.
So see, so that's why certain things. That's why we know there are certain things that we can do and certain things we can't do. All right, because of the laws of like you said, certain states. All right. So then he says, in verse 25, and it shall come to pass when ye be come to the land which the Lord God giveth you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. So now the Lord said, when you come into the land that I give you, then you shall keep this service as well. So the Passover was to be kept even when we received our land. All right, so none of it was supposed to change whatsoever. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what means ye by this service? So then, as it was taught to the first generation, to the second generation, then to the third generation, then from those who were in the children that are born in the land, and they're asking you, well, why are we keeping the Passover, Dad or Mom? Then you will let them know why you're keeping the Passover, and the Lord He tells you what to say right here. So he says, that ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshiped. So the people said they bowed the head and they worshiped. You see that? So this is what we're supposed to tell our children. And he says, and the children of Israel went away, did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. All right. So that's why we're supposed to keep the ordinance of the Passover, right, and take it seriously, because it represents the greatness of the deliverance. All right, and how the Lord didn't destroy us along with the Egyptians, how the Lord preserved us even through the immense destruction that was going on in the land of Egypt at the time. All right, so we know that, like I said, when we go into to analyzing the 10 plagues, man, to see how the Lord basically, man, crippled the Egyptian empire, you know what I mean, and its economy and all of that stuff, man. So how the people were so ready to get the children of Israel up out of there, man. It was ridiculous, right? That's why it says, man, they told them, here, take what you need and get out. You know what I mean? They was even telling Pharaoh, man, like, Pharaoh, you need to let these people go. Let them go serve their God in the wilderness. Pharaoh's like, nope, not doing it. Not until the death of the firstborns is when Pharaoh, you know what I'm saying, actually decided to let the children of Israel go. All right. So now it says, and it shall come to pass that at midnight the Lord, and it shall come to pass, and it came to pass, so now it happened, that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. Look at that. So both man and beast the Lord smote that night. All right. He smote that night. Okay. So now it says here, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians that was at there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. Look at that. So just think about millions of people, right? Millions of Egyptian people, millions of Hamitic people, along with the other strangers that were there that were captives and all of that, right? Their sons are dead, and there's wailing all throughout the land. You see that? That's how powerful of an event, man, that just occurred. And it says, and when he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. So he's like, get out and go serve the Lord your God. He said, get out from amongst my people, right? So remember, that goes to show you, man, that there was no similarity between the Egyptians and the Israelites right there in the scripture. Yeah. All right, it shows you. So it says, and the Egyptians were urgent upon the people. I'm sorry, let me jump up. Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs, being bound upon being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed the Egyptians jewelry of silver, jewelry of gold, and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. All right. So about 600,000 men, all right, that were on foot. So it says, that were men besides children. All right. So there was probably an even greater multitude. All right. Depending on how many children were in the household, depending on how many wives a man had, etc. All right. So it says you could have been looking at almost over 1 million people. So now it says, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and the flocks and herds, even very much cattle. So they also had the strangers that came out along with them. All right. And it says, and they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. So this was something that they just couldn't prepare for, right? So remember, they got thrusted out. So now it says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years, right? So 430 years, that's how long the children of Israel sojourned in the land of Egypt, all right? So basically, you could do the math. We could do the math there, to see when they entered into Egypt, etc. All right. So it says, and it came to pass at the end of 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt, right? So the actual date, right, biblical scholars give is 1446 BCE, all right? So 1446 BCE, that is the date that they give for the Exodus, all right? So now let's read on. So it says, it is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is the night of the Lord to be observed for all the children of Israel in their generations. So this is the night to be observed, all right? So the children of Israel have to make sure that they observe the Passover, all right? And it says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Look at that. So he said, this is the ordinance of the Passover, that no stranger shall eat thereof. So no stranger could eat of the Passover. All right. But every man's servant that is brought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. So if you had a servant, right? All right. So any stranger that was just coming out of the blue, they couldn't partake of the Passover whatsoever. All right. So now it says, but every man's servant that is bought for money, right? So your slaves or whatever the case may be, then as long as they circumcised, they can partake of the Passover. Remember, because they're part of that man's household. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. So he says, now a foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. So it couldn't be eaten at every single person's house. It could only be eaten where, right? At one house. All right. So whoever you chose to have the house at, according to the number of souls, then of course that's when you basically eat at that you eat at that person's house. All right. So you see some congregations, they'll order just a big they'll order a big ballroom or facility, and then that's where they'll have the Passover feast at. All right. So it says, all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. So all of the children of Israel have to keep the feast. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. All right. So now if it was a stranger, it was a stranger that sojourned with him, then remember he had to be circumcised. All right. So he had to be circumcised, and anybody or any male that was with him had to be circumcised. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. So no one who was uncircumcised, who still had the foreskin, of the penis upon them, could partake of it, because they would be considered unclean. Remember, all of the children of Israel were circumcised. He says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So it's one law. All right. So it's one law, not two laws, not three laws. It's one law. All right. He says, thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. Look at that. Mm-hmm. So that's when he brought them out. All right. So that's where you get those famous portraits of you seeing the children of Israel being brought out by their armies. Okay. So we just wanted to go over that bit of the piece of the history. And as I said before, there's going to be more more understanding brought forth about the Passover, about what it represents, through the next couple of weeks before the Passover. So of course, with that, I'm gonna say shalom, and I hope everybody has a blessed rest of the Sabbath. And from the House of Christ, Sons of Isaac Israelite Congregation, we say peace.